You begin by noticing space itself, not as emptiness, but as something soft and yielding. It does not rush. It does not resist. It simply allows distance to exist, like a quiet room that grows larger without ever needing to move its walls. As you settle into this thought, your breathing slows, and the universe seems to breathe with you, expanding in a rhythm so gentle that it feels almost still. You are used to thinking of space as a backdrop, a dark stage where stars perform. Tonight, you let that idea loosen. Space is not nothing. It has texture, a subtle presence, a quiet ability to stretch. Galaxies are not flying through it like sparks in air. Instead, the space between them is slowly widening, carrying everything along without effort. This is expansion, and it is happening everywhere, all at once, without a center, without an edge. You imagine drawing dots on the surface of a balloon. As the balloon inflates, the dots drift apart, not because they move on their own, but because the surface itself grows. The universe behaves in a similar way, though it has no skin to touch and no breath you can hear. Expansion is not an explosion from a single place. It is a soft, universal stretching, happening equally in every direction, like a calm decision that never needs to be announced. Long ago, scientists noticed that distant galaxies appear redder than expected. Their light stretches as it travels, its waves lengthened by the expanding space it crosses. This gentle reddening is not a sign of exhaustion, but of distance growing quietly over time. Light becomes a storyteller, carrying news of motion without urgency, whispering that the universe is larger now than it was when that light began its journey. As you rest with this idea, time itself begins to feel different. Expansion unfolds over billions of years, a pace so slow that it feels eternal. Nothing about it is dramatic. There is no tearing sound, no visible strain. Even now, as you lie still, space continues to stretch between galaxies, between clusters, between the vast threads of cosmic structure. It does not disturb atoms or pull apart your body. On small scales, gravity and other forces hold things gently together, allowing expansion to remain a background motion, almost like silence. You sense how comforting that is. The universe can change profoundly without causing immediate disruption. Growth does not have to be violent. It can be subtle, patient, and kind. Expansion becomes less like a force and more like a condition, a quiet permission for distance to increase over time. Within this stretching universe, a deeper question waits. What causes expansion to continue? At first, gravity should have slowed it down. All matter attracts all other matter, and over immense distances, that attraction adds up. Galaxies, clusters, and vast clouds of dark matter pull on each other constantly. For a long time, scientists expected the expansion to gradually ease, like a tossed stone slowing as it rises. But the universe does not follow that simple expectation. Instead of relaxing, expansion seems calm but persistent, as if guided by something else. This is where you begin to sense dark energy, not as an object or a substance, but as a quiet influence woven into space itself. It does not shine. It does not clump. It does not announce its presence. Yet it shapes the future of everything. You do not try to define it yet. Definitions feel too sharp for this moment. Instead, you notice how dark energy feels more like a background mood than a visible thing. It is present everywhere that space exists. As space stretches, Dark energy stretches with it, maintaining a steady pressure that encourages expansion to continue. Scientists sometimes describe this pressure as negative, but that word does not mean harmful. It simply means that dark energy behaves differently than familiar forces. Where gravity pulls inward, dark energy gently encourages space to grow. Not by pushing objects apart directly, but by influencing the geometry of the universe itself. You let this idea settle without effort. The universe is not just filled with things. It is shaped by tendencies. Expansion becomes an expression of how space responds to what it contains. Dark energy, in this sense, is not something acting within space. It is something acting as space. As your thoughts slow, you realize how little this expansion demands from you. You do not need to understand equations or memorize discoveries. It is enough to feel the scale of time involved, the patience written into the cosmos. Billions of years pass as gently as minutes drifting into sleep. The universe is in no hurry to reach an ending. This gentleness invites another thought. If expansion feels so calm, so steady, could it be listening rather than insisting? Could the universe be responding to conditions rather than enforcing a rule? Dark energy is often treated as a constant, an unchanging feature of reality. But tonight, you allow uncertainty to remain open, like a door left ajar. You imagine expansion as a conversation rather than a command. Space stretches, matter responds, gravity counters, and dark energy quietly balances the exchange. Nothing needs to win. Nothing needs to conclude. The universe simply continues, adjusting its pace with extraordinary patience. As you breathe, you feel how small emotions can coexist with immense ones. Your chest rises and falls. Outside, the earth turns. Beyond that, the galaxy drifts. Farther still, clusters separate, carried by expanding space. All of it happens together, layered like overlapping rhythms that never interfere. The idea of a changing universe no longer feels unsettling. Change does not always mean instability. Sometimes it means adaptation so gradual that it feels like rest. Dark energy, whatever its true nature, participates in that calm transformation, shaping the large-scale behavior of everything without disturbing the quiet of the present moment. You sense that this way of thinking changes how you hold uncertainty. Instead of tightening around it, you allow it to rest beside you. The unknown becomes a companion rather than a threat. In the darkness between stars, there is no urgency to explain everything at once. Knowledge accumulates slowly, observation by observation, breath by breath. Even the universe itself seems comfortable with not revealing all its reasons. It stretches first, asks questions later, if at all. This patience feels like an invitation. You do not have to rush toward understanding. You are allowed to float within wonder, supported by the quiet structure of reality, where even the largest motions unfold with care and restraint. Perhaps rest is not the absence of motion, but trust in slow processes, where meaning arrives gradually, carried gently by time, expansion, and the steady willingness of space to change without resistance now. You begin this chapter by resting inside gravity, the oldest and most familiar touch in the universe. Gravity is the reason anything gathers at all. It draws dust into clouds, clouds into stars, stars into galaxies. It is the quiet hand that shapes structure, always pulling, always patient. You feel it now, holding you to the earth, keeping your body comfortably heavy, reminding you that falling is the most natural motion there is. In the early universe, gravity is almost everything. After the universe begins expanding, matter spreads outward, but gravity works tirelessly to slow that motion. Wherever particles drift close enough, gravity encourages them to stay. Over millions of years, tiny differences grow into patterns. Dense regions become brighter, heavier, more complex. Emptier regions stretch thinner, quieter, darker. This is how the cosmic web forms, a vast lace of galaxies threaded together by invisible pull. You imagine the young universe as restless but obedient. Expansion carries matter outward, but gravity gently resists, gathering what it can. Stars ignite. Galaxies rotate. Clusters form like long, slow conversations between distant objects. Everything feels balanced, as if expansion and gravity are negotiating in unspoken agreement about pace. For a long time, scientists expect gravity to win eventually. Matter is heavy. Space is large, but gravity reaches everywhere. It seems reasonable that expansion should slow down, perhaps stop, perhaps even reverse. The universe might one day fall back inward, collapsing toward itself in a final gathering. This idea feels intuitive, like watching a tossed ball return to your hand. You rest inside that expectation for a while. It is comforting. Gravity feels dependable. It builds rather than erases. It creates places to stand, stars to orbit, worlds to form. Without gravity, nothing would ever settle. Everything would drift endlessly, never touching, never becoming more than motion. But the universe does not remain this simple. As time passes, something subtle begins to shift. Expansion does not slow as much as expected. Galaxies continue to separate, not just because of their initial motion, but because space itself keeps stretching. Gravity still works, still gathers locally, but on the largest scales, its influence begins to feel diluted, spread thin across an ever-growing cosmos. You imagine gravity reaching outward with long arms, trying to hold onto distant galaxies, only to find that the distance itself is increasing. The farther apart things become, the weaker gravity's grip feels between them. Not because gravity changes, but because the stage it works on grows larger and quieter. This is where another presence begins to make itself felt. Not loudly. Not suddenly. Just enough to matter. Dark energy does not push galaxies apart like hands on shoulders. Instead, it changes how space behaves between them. As space expands, dark energy does not fade away. It remains evenly spread, maintaining a gentle influence everywhere at once. The more space there is, the more room this influence has to act. You sense the balance tipping, not like a scale crashing downward, but like a slow lean. Gravity continues to pull matter together where it is already close. Galaxies remain intact. Stars keep orbiting. Nothing dramatic happens nearby. But across vast distances, something else begins to set the tone. Scientists discover the shift only by looking very far away. Nearby, gravity still feels dominant. It binds planets, stars, and galaxies with ease. But when astronomers study galaxies separated by billions of light years, they notice that the expansion between them is not easing. It is continuing, calmly, persistently. This realization arrives without urgency. There is no single moment of shock. Instead, data accumulates quietly, observation by observation. Gravity alone cannot explain what is seen. Something else is contributing, something that does not clump or collapse, something that remains smooth even as the universe grows more complex. You let this idea settle gently. Gravity does not disappear. It does not fail. It simply shares influence. On smaller scales, it still rules with confidence. On larger scales, it begins to yield, not because it weakens, but because another tendency becomes more relevant. You imagine gravity as a careful builder, assembling structure patiently over time. Dark energy feels less like a builder and more like an open horizon, encouraging space to keep becoming more than it was. Neither is wrong. Neither is complete on its own. The universe needs both to become what it is. This cooperation feels important. Forces do not always compete. Sometimes they coexist, each shaping a different aspect of reality. Gravity shapes places. Dark energy shapes distances. Together, they determine the rhythm of cosmic history. As you breathe, you notice how this mirrors your own experience. Some forces in your life gather and stabilize. Others encourage change, growth, expansion. Balance is not static. It shifts slowly as conditions change. What once held everything together may eventually learn to loosen its grip, allowing something new to unfold. Gravity learning to let go is not a failure. It is an adaptation to scale. In a small universe, gravity dominates. In a larger one, space itself begins to matter more. Dark energy becomes noticeable only when there is enough room for it to express itself. You feel how patient this transition is. Billions of years pass before dark energy's influence becomes clear. Nothing rushes. Nothing breaks. The universe adjusts its behavior with remarkable calm. Expansion continues, not as an escape from gravity, but as a response to a deeper balance. Scientists describe this moment as the universe entering a new era, one where expansion accelerates rather than slows. But acceleration here does not mean speed in the ordinary sense. It means that the rate of expansion increases over time, gently, almost imperceptibly. Galaxies drift apart slightly faster tomorrow than today, and faster still long after that. You imagine this acceleration as a soft release of tension. Gravity continues to do what it has always done, but it no longer sets the final pace everywhere. Space itself begins to play a more active role, shaping the future with quiet consistency. This realization changes how you see the cosmos. The universe is not governed by a single rule. It evolves, not just in structure, but in which influences matter most. What dominates at one time may become secondary later. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is abandoned. Everything contributes when the moment is right. As the chapter draws toward rest, you feel gravity still present, still dependable, still holding nearby worlds together. But beyond that familiar pull, something else is at work, something subtle and persistent, preparing to reveal itself more clearly through the faint light of distant stars. You begin this chapter by following light, the oldest traveler in the universe. Light does not hurry, but it never stops. Once released, it moves faithfully through space, crossing distances so vast they feel unreal, carrying with it a memory of where it began. Tonight, you let yourself drift alongside it, resting inside its long, quiet journey. Astronomers learn to listen to light with great patience. They wait for it to arrive from places unimaginably far away, knowing that what they see is not the present, but the past. Every distant galaxy is a message written long ago, delivered slowly across expanding space. You imagine these messages arriving softly, one by one, like letters slipped under a door while the world sleeps. Some of the most important messages come from stars that are already gone. These stars live fast and bright, ending their lives in sudden, brilliant outbursts. For a brief moment, they shine with a predictable intensity, bright enough to be seen across billions of light years. Because their brightness is known, they become gentle measuring tools, allowing scientists to estimate how far away their galaxies truly are. You picture astronomers comparing expectation with observation. If the universe's expansion were slowing, distant galaxies would be closer than expected, their light brighter, more concentrated. But that is not what appears. Instead, these distant lights arrive fainter than anticipated, stretched thin by the space they have crossed. This faintness is subtle. It does not announce itself dramatically. It emerges only after careful study, after patterns repeat themselves across many observations. Light after light tells the same quiet story. The universe is larger than it should be at that age. The space between galaxies has grown more than gravity alone would allow. You rest inside the stillness of this realization. There is no explosion of certainty, no sudden revelation. Just a gradual understanding forming in the space between expectation and evidence. Expansion is not easing. It is accelerating. Acceleration here is not violent. It does not mean galaxies are racing away at alarming speeds. It means something gentler, almost counterintuitive. Over time, the rate at which space expands increases. The universe stretches more tomorrow than it does today, and more still as time continues. The change is slow enough to feel calm, yet steady enough to shape the destiny of everything. You imagine the universe as a road that subtly slopes downward. At first, movement feels ordinary. But as time passes, the slope becomes more noticeable. Without ever pushing harder, motion increases naturally. This is how acceleration unfolds on cosmic scales, not as a shove, but as a gradual easing into faster expansion. What surprises scientists most is not just that expansion accelerates, but how quietly it does so. Nothing nearby seems affected. Galaxies remain stable. Stars continue their orbits. Planets follow familiar paths. The acceleration reveals itself only across immense distances and deep time. It is a truth too large to be felt directly, requiring patience and trust in careful observation. You feel how this kind of discovery mirrors the process of falling asleep. Awareness fades gently. There is no single moment when waking ends and sleep begins. Instead, a shift occurs slowly, quietly, noticeable only in hindsight. The universe, too, changes its behavior without announcing the moment it begins. This realization forces scientists to reconsider their assumptions. Gravity alone cannot account for what is seen. Something else must be contributing, something that counteracts gravity's pull across vast expanses of space. Dark energy, once a theoretical possibility, now feels necessary, even if its nature remains unknown. You notice how carefully this conclusion is held. Scientists do not rush to claim understanding. They describe what is observed, not what is desired. The universe appears to be accelerating. Dark energy becomes the name given to whatever causes this behavior. It is a label for influence, not an explanation of essence. Light continues to carry this message faithfully. As it travels, its wavelength stretches, becoming redder, calmer, lower in energy. This stretching reflects the expansion of space itself. The farther light travels, the more space has grown beneath it, lengthening its waves like notes drawn out into longer tones. You imagine these stretched waves as lullabies, slowed and softened by distance. They arrive altered but intact, still carrying information about their origin. The universe writes its story in light, and though the letters blur slightly over time, the meaning remains readable. The discovery of accelerating expansion changes how time is perceived. The future no longer looks like a gradual settling. Instead, it opens into continued growth, ongoing separation, and ever-widening cosmos. This future is not dramatic or catastrophic. It is spacious, quiet, and persistent. You let yourself feel the emotional weight of that idea. The universe is not closing in on itself. It is opening outward. Distance increases. Isolation becomes more common on the largest scales. Yet nothing feels lonely in this expansion. It unfolds with such patience that it feels almost nurturing, making room rather than taking it away. Astronomers double-check their findings, question their methods, test alternative explanations. Could the stars be different than expected? Could dust be dimming the light? Could gravity behave differently across time? Each possibility is examined carefully, and one by one, they fail to fully account for what is seen. The conclusion remains calm and persistent. The universe is accelerating. Dark energy, whatever it may be, plays a dominant role in shaping cosmic history. It influences not just motion, but destiny. You sense how this discovery reframes humanity's place in the cosmos. We live at a moment when this acceleration is detectable, when dark energy has begun to outweigh gravity on the largest scales. Earlier in the universe's life, this effect would have been too subtle to notice. Later, it may become overwhelming. Now, it is balanced delicately between invisibility and dominance. This timing feels almost poetic. Awareness arises during transition. Understanding blooms during change. The universe reveals its deeper behavior only when conditions allow observation, as if inviting curiosity at precisely the right moment. As your thoughts slow, you rest with the idea that the universe does not announce its turning points. It does not mark them with alarms or signals. Change arrives quietly, revealed only to those who wait, who measure, who listen to faint light crossing enormous darkness. The stars grow dimmer not because they are fading, but because the space between you and them has grown larger than expected. Their light carries this truth gently, without urgency, without judgment. It simply arrives, whispering that the universe is stretching faster now than before. And in this whisper, you find comfort. The cosmos does not shout its secrets. It trusts that patience will uncover them. It allows understanding to come slowly, like sleep, like dawn, like realization unfolding in its own time. You arrive at a quiet human instinct, the need to name what you do not yet understand. Naming is not possession. It is not control. It is simply a way of acknowledging presence. When something repeatedly shapes your experience, even invisibly, the mind reaches for language, not to capture it fully, but to hold it gently in thought. This is where dark energy receives its name. Not because it has been found, isolated, or touched. Not because its nature is known, but because its influence is undeniable. The universe expands faster than gravity alone allows, and something must be responsible. That something does not glow, does not gather, does not announce itself. It remains unseen, yet effective. A name becomes a bridge between ignorance and curiosity. You notice how careful the name is. Dark does not mean evil or dangerous. It means unknown, unlit, not yet visible. Energy does not mean fuel or fire. It means influence, capacity, the ability to do something without revealing its substance. Together, the words do not explain. They point. Dark energy is not a discovery in the traditional sense. No one observes it directly. No instrument detects it passing through space. Instead, it is inferred, the way you infer wind by the movement of leaves, or time by the change of light in a room. The universe behaves in a certain way, and dark energy becomes the name for whatever causes that behavior. You sit with the humility of this approach. Science does not pretend to know more than it does. It admits uncertainty openly, building understanding not from certainty, but from careful honesty. Naming the unknown is not an act of arrogance. It is an act of patience. You feel how this mirrors something deeply human. When you give a name to an emotion you cannot yet explain, it becomes less overwhelming. When you name a fear, it loses some of its power. The unknown does not vanish, but it becomes approachable. Dark energy works the same way. It transforms confusion into curiosity. Before this name exists, the universe's acceleration feels unsettling, almost contradictory. Afterward, it feels organized, even if incomplete. Dark energy becomes a place where questions can rest without demanding immediate answers. A container for mystery. You notice that the name does not imply permanence. It does not claim that dark energy will always behave as it does now. It simply acknowledges that something is influencing expansion today. The name remains flexible, open to revision, ready to change as understanding deepens. This openness is essential. Science is not a finished book. It is a conversation stretched across generations. Names evolve. Ideas shift. What once feels fundamental may later reveal itself as temporary. Dark energy is named not as a final truth, but as a working concept, a signpost on a longer journey. You imagine scientists sitting with data late into the night, surrounded by graphs and measurements, resisting the urge to force certainty where it does not yet exist. Naming becomes an act of restraint. It says, we see something happening, and we are willing to wait before claiming to know why. The universe, in return, offers no reassurance. It does not confirm or deny. It simply continues to expand, calmly, steadily, unconcerned with human labels. Dark energy does not respond to its name. It remains exactly as it is, indifferent to being noticed. This indifference feels strangely comforting. The universe does not perform for observation. It exists on its own terms. Understanding becomes a privilege earned slowly, not a reward granted quickly. You think about other names in science that began as placeholders. Words that once meant we don't know yet but later grew into detailed theories. Some names faded away, replaced by deeper insight. Others remained, enriched by understanding. Dark energy may follow either path. For now, it waits. The name also prevents misunderstanding. Without it, people might imagine galaxies accelerating because of explosions, forces pushing them outward violently. Dark energy shifts the narrative. It suggests something woven into space itself, something quiet and pervasive rather than forceful and loud. You feel how language shapes imagination. A careless name could have led thought astray. This one invites calm reflection. It encourages questions rather than fear. Dark energy does not threaten. It simply exists. Still, the name carries weight. By naming something, you acknowledge its importance. Dark energy is not a small correction or a minor detail. It dominates the universe's large-scale behavior. Most of the energy content of the cosmos appears to reside in this unknown form. Ordinary matter, stars, planets, even dark matter, become supporting characters in a story shaped largely by something unseen. This realization arrives gently, but it changes perspective. The visible universe is not the whole story. Light reveals only a fraction of what matters. Reality is deeper than appearance, shaped by influences that do not announce themselves visually. You let this sink in slowly. It does not feel threatening. It feels expansive. The universe is richer than it looks. Mystery is not a flaw in understanding, but a feature of existence. Naming dark energy also sets boundaries. It reminds scientists what they do not know. It prevents overconfidence. It marks a space where exploration is still needed, where assumptions must be tested carefully. The name becomes a promise of future inquiry rather than a claim of completion. You appreciate this restraint. In a world that often demands quick answers, science models patience. It shows that it is acceptable to say, "We do not know yet," and still move forward thoughtfully. As you breathe, you notice how naming without touching applies beyond science. There are things in your own life that shape you quietly, influences you feel but cannot define. Giving them names does not solve them, but it allows you to live alongside them with less tension. Dark energy becomes a metaphor as much as a concept. It represents the idea that unseen influences can be gentle, that mystery can coexist with stability, that not knowing does not mean being lost. The universe continues its expansion, unconcerned with whether it is understood. Dark energy continues its influence, unnamed in its own reality, labeled only in human thought. The gap between those perspectives feels vast, yet peaceful. You sense that this chapter is not about answers, but about comfort with questions. Naming is not the end of inquiry. It is the beginning of a deeper kind of listening. As the night deepens, you allow the name to rest lightly in your mind, knowing it holds space for curiosity rather than closure. Dark energy remains untouched, unexplained, yet acknowledged. And in that acknowledgement, there is calm. You begin this chapter by resting inside the idea of constancy. There is comfort in things that do not change. A steady rhythm, a familiar pattern, a quiet assurance that tomorrow will behave much like today. In the universe, constancy has long been a trusted companion. Laws of motion, speeds of light, the reliable pull of gravity, these have offered a sense of permanence in a vast and shifting cosmos. Dark energy, once named, is often imagined this way too. A constant presence. A steady pressure woven evenly through space itself. It does not clump or thin out. It does not grow tired or fade with time. As space expands, dark energy remains, calmly filling every new stretch of distance that appears. You imagine it like a gentle tension in fabric. As the fabric grows larger, the tension does not disappear. It remains evenly distributed, maintaining its quiet influence. This picture feels soothing. The universe expands, but something within it stays the same. Scientists give this idea a formal shape. They describe dark energy as a constant property of space, something intrinsic to emptiness itself. Wherever there is space, there is this pressure encouraging expansion. It does not depend on matter or radiation. It simply exists. You let yourself sit with this image. A universe guided by a steady, unchanging influence feels orderly, almost reassuring. The future becomes predictable. Expansion continues. Distances grow. The cosmos becomes quieter, more spread out, more still. Nothing dramatic interrupts this slow unfolding. But as you rest with this comfort, a quieter question begins to form. What if constancy is an assumption rather than a truth? What if dark energy is not fixed forever, but only appears so over the brief window of time we have observed? This question does not arrive loudly. It slips in gently, like a change in temperature you notice only after sitting still for a while. Science allows this kind of questioning. It encourages it. No idea, no matter how elegant, is exempt from curiosity. You remember how young the universe once was. Hotter, denser, brighter. Many things that feel constant now were different then. Forces behaved differently. Matter interacted in unfamiliar ways. Even space itself was not yet the calm, expansive stage it is today. If so much has changed, why should dark energy be immune? You imagine the universe as a long story rather than a frozen rulebook. In stories, characters grow. Conditions shift. What dominates one chapter may fade in another. Dark energy might be steady now, but that does not guarantee it always has been, or always will be. Scientists explore this possibility carefully. They ask whether dark energy's strength could vary over time, changing so slowly that it feels constant across human observation. Perhaps it was weaker in the past, allowing gravity to shape structure more effectively. Perhaps it will grow stronger in the future, accelerating expansion even more. These ideas do not overthrow what is known. They gently extend it. They respect the evidence while acknowledging its limits. The universe has been observed for only a fraction of its life. Certainty beyond that window remains tentative. You notice how this uncertainty feels different from ignorance. It is informed, deliberate, patient. It does not panic at the idea of change. It welcomes it as a possibility worth exploring. The thought that dark energy might change over time subtly alters the future. Expansion could behave differently than expected. The universe might not simply drift endlessly apart at a steady pace. It could accelerate more rapidly, or gradually soften its expansion, or do something not yet imagined. None of these possibilities feel threatening in this moment. They unfold over timescales so immense that urgency has no meaning. Billions of years stretch ahead, spacious enough to hold many outcomes without demand. You reflect on how often constancy is assumed because it feels safe. In daily life, routines stabilize you. Patterns offer rest. But even in your own body, change is constant beneath apparent stability. Cells renew. Thoughts evolve. Moods shift like weather. Constancy is often a surface illusion supported by deeper motion. The universe may be similar. Dark energy might appear constant because its changes are subtle, slow, patient beyond easy detection. Its steadiness may be a temporary kindness rather than an eternal promise. You feel how this perspective softens expectations. Instead of clinging to fixed outcomes, it invites openness. The universe is allowed to surprise, to adapt, to reveal new layers of behavior as time unfolds. Scientists attempt to measure this potential change by studying how expansion behaves at different epochs. They compare distant galaxies, ancient light, and subtle patterns across the sky. They look for hints that dark energy's influence was once weaker or stronger than it is now. So far, the evidence suggests consistency. Dark energy behaves like a constant within the limits of observation. But those limits are narrow compared to cosmic history. Precision improves slowly, measurement by measurement, decade by decade. Certainty remains provisional. You appreciate the restraint in this approach. Science does not demand that uncertainty be resolved immediately. It allows questions to remain open, held gently without anxiety. This patience mirrors the universe's own pace. As you breathe, you imagine dark energy as a tide rather than a wall. It fills space, but it may rise or fall slowly over time. If it changes, it does so with extraordinary calm, never rushing, never forcing. This image feels peaceful. The universe is not locked into a single destiny. It evolves, responding to conditions that unfold gradually. Dark energy becomes part of that evolution rather than a rigid rule imposed from the beginning. You notice how this idea reshapes the meaning of constancy. Constancy does not have to mean permanence. It can mean reliability within a moment, stability across a chapter, kindness during a phase. Things may remain steady long enough to support structure, life, and understanding, even if they eventually change. The universe has already demonstrated this pattern. Radiation once dominated. Then matter took the lead. Now dark energy shapes the largest scales. Each era feels stable while it lasts, then gently gives way. You rest inside this rhythm of succession. Nothing is taken abruptly. Each influence fades slowly, respectfully, allowing the next to emerge. Change is not loss. It is transition. As this chapter settles, you feel less attached to the idea of fixed truths and more comfortable with evolving understanding. Dark energy, constant or not, continues to guide expansion for now. That is enough. The universe does not require certainty to continue. It unfolds regardless of whether its deepest rules are fully known. And perhaps that is the most calming thought of all. You begin this chapter by moving backward, not through space, but through time. The universe allows this kind of travel. All you need to do is look far enough away. Light arriving now has been journeying for billions of years, carrying with it the memory of earlier moments, earlier conditions, earlier rules. The farther you look, the younger the universe becomes. You imagine the cosmos long before it felt spacious and calm. Everything is closer then. Hotter. Denser. Matter and radiation fill space so completely that emptiness barely exists. Expansion is still happening, but it feels different, faster, more urgent, shaped by intense energy rather than quiet distance. In this younger universe, gravity is strong and confident. Matter dominates the cosmic balance. Galaxies are forming, stars are igniting, structure is emerging from tiny differences amplified over time. There is little room for subtle influences to express themselves. Everything feels immediate, crowded, alive with interaction. You wonder where dark energy fits into this picture. If dark energy is truly a constant property of space, then it is present even here, woven into every dense region, every bright moment. But if it exists, it is overshadowed. Its influence is drowned out by matter and radiation, too small to shape behavior in a noticeable way. You imagine dark energy whispering in a room full of voices. It speaks, but no one hears it yet. Scientists search this early universe carefully, not by direct observation, but by reading its afterimages. One of the most important is a faint glow that fills all of space, a relic of a time when the universe first became transparent. This ancient light carries subtle patterns, tiny variations in temperature and density, frozen into it like fingerprints. You let yourself drift across this cosmic background, feeling its smoothness, its near-uniform calm. These patterns reveal how matter was distributed long ago, how gravity would later shape it into galaxies and clusters. They also reveal something equally important, how expansion behaved in the universe's youth. The evidence suggests that dark energy did not dominate then. Expansion slowed during those early eras, shaped mainly by gravity's pull. Matter gathered efficiently. Structures formed. The universe was busy building. This absence is meaningful. If dark energy had been strong early on, it might have prevented galaxies from forming at all. Matter would have been pulled apart too quickly, leaving a thin, empty cosmos without stars or planets. The fact that you exist, that galaxies exist, tells you something important. Dark energy, if present, was gentle enough to allow complexity to emerge. You feel how delicate this balance is. The universe does not require precision down to perfection, but it does require restraint. Dark energy cannot dominate too soon, or structure never forms. It cannot be absent forever, or expansion slows too much. Somewhere between these extremes, the universe finds a path that allows both growth and stability. You imagine the early universe as a child learning to stand. Gravity helps it gather itself, find balance, build strength. Only later does space stretch wide enough for dark energy to begin shaping motion more noticeably. This timing raises quiet questions. Did dark energy exist in the same form back then? Was it truly constant, simply overwhelmed by stronger influences? Or did it behave differently, emerging gradually as conditions changed? Scientists explore these possibilities by comparing different epochs of cosmic history. They examine how structures grow, how expansion evolves, how ancient light reflects early conditions. Each measurement is a careful listening, an attempt to hear faint echoes beneath louder sounds. So far, these echoes suggest continuity rather than disruption. Dark energy does not appear to have surged dramatically in the past. It did not dominate early. It waited. But waiting itself can take many forms. Perhaps dark energy has always been present, quietly patient, only becoming noticeable when space grew large enough for it to matter. Or perhaps it emerged gradually, changing character as the universe cooled and expanded. Both possibilities remain open. You feel how the past resists being fully pinned down. It does not offer clear answers. It hums softly, layered with information that must be interpreted carefully. Every conclusion carries uncertainty, every inference rests on limited data. This uncertainty does not feel frustrating. It feels honest. The universe does not rush to explain itself. It allows patterns to be discovered slowly, through persistence rather than revelation. Dark energy's role in the early universe remains subtle, hinted at rather than declared. You imagine time as a long river. Near its source, the current is fast and turbulent. Farther downstream, it widens and slows, allowing deeper currents to influence direction. Dark energy may be one of those deeper currents, irrelevant near the source, decisive later on. This metaphor feels right. The universe changes character as it ages. What matters early does not always matter later. Influence depends on context, scale, and timing. You notice how this perspective softens the idea of cosmic rules. Laws are not always about dominance. Sometimes they are about relevance. Gravity, radiation, matter, dark energy, each takes its turn shaping the story. The early universe hums with energy, density, and interaction. Dark energy, if present, remains almost silent. Only when the universe grows older, cooler, and more spacious does its voice begin to carry. This delayed influence feels intentional, though you know it is not. There is no plan, no foresight. Just natural behavior unfolding under changing conditions. Still, the result feels elegant, as if the universe knows when to shift emphasis. As you breathe, you think about how memory works. Some influences shape you early, forming structure and habit. Others matter later, guiding direction and pace. The past is never gone. It continues to influence the present quietly, indirectly. The universe carries its own memory. Ancient light remembers early conditions. Patterns preserve history. By studying them, scientists learn not just what happened, but what could not have happened. Dark energy, whatever its nature, respected those early limits. It allowed a universe capable of complexity to emerge. That alone is a powerful clue. As this chapter settles, you feel time stretching around you, connecting past and present without urgency. The universe does not erase its youth. It carries it forward, encoded in light and structure, waiting to be read. And in that ancient glow, you sense the next question forming, not about when dark energy appeared, but about how it behaves now, whether it might change its tone, its strength, its mood as the universe continues to age. You begin this chapter by letting go of the idea that everything must be solid to be real. Some of the most powerful influences in your life have no shape at all. A mood can fill a room without occupying space. A feeling can change the direction of a day without ever being touched. Dark energy begins to feel similar, not an object, not a particle, but a tendency, a quiet leaning of the universe toward expansion. Scientists often try to describe dark energy with equations, but beneath the symbols lies something softer. The equations do not say what dark energy is. They describe how it behaves. They tell a story about pressure, balance, and response. In this way, mathematics becomes less like a tool of control and more like a language of listening. You imagine space itself having a disposition. Not a plan, not a desire, but a natural inclination. When space exists, it seems to prefer stretching rather than remaining still. Dark energy becomes the name for that preference, that gentle bias written into the fabric of reality. This way of thinking does not demand that dark energy be constant. Moods change. Weather shifts. Tendencies respond to context. Something can feel stable for long periods and still evolve slowly beneath the surface. Dark energy, seen this way, does not need to be rigid to be reliable. You rest with this idea. It feels intuitive. The universe is not a machine with fixed settings. It is a process, unfolding moment by moment, era by era. Its behavior emerges from relationships rather than commands. Dark energy participates in those relationships quietly, influencing how space responds to its own existence. Scientists describe this behavior using a concept called an equation of state, a way of relating pressure to energy. You do not need the details. What matters is the feeling behind it. This equation asks, how does this influence respond when space expands? Does it resist change? Does it amplify it? Does it remain indifferent? Dark energy's answer, so far, appears calm. As space grows, its influence remains smooth, evenly distributed, unbothered by complexity. It does not clump. It does not fragment. It behaves more like a background tone than a melody. But a background tone can still shift key. You imagine listening to music that changes so slowly you only notice after a long time. The mood deepens. The color of sound darkens or brightens almost imperceptibly. Dark energy may behave this way, changing its strength or character over immense stretches of time without ever announcing the transition. This possibility excites scientists gently, not with urgency, but with curiosity. If dark energy evolves, it could explain subtle differences in how expansion behaves across cosmic history. It could reveal deeper connections between space, time, and energy itself. You feel how carefully this idea is held. No claim is made without evidence. For now, observations suggest dark energy behaves very much like a constant. But the door remains open. Precision improves. Measurements refine. Listening deepens. You notice how this mirrors emotional understanding. A mood may feel stable until reflection reveals it has been shifting all along. Change does not always arrive as disruption. Often it arrives as drift. This perspective softens the universe. It becomes less mechanical, more organic. Laws are not rigid rails but guiding tendencies. The cosmos flows rather than marches. You imagine dark energy as emotional weather for space. On some days, some eras, it is calm and barely noticeable. On others, it subtly reshapes the landscape, influencing how far things drift apart, how quickly separation increases. Yet nothing breaks. Nothing collapses. The weather passes slowly, almost politely. This analogy does not reduce science to metaphor. It complements it. Metaphor allows understanding to rest where precision cannot yet reach. It helps you feel what equations describe abstractly. Scientists sometimes explore models where dark energy is dynamic, slowly changing over time. In these models, dark energy behaves more like a field than a fixed property, something that can evolve as the universe evolves. These ideas remain speculative, but they are grounded in mathematics and observation, not imagination alone. You sense how careful this exploration is. No one claims that dark energy must change. They ask whether it could. They test the idea gently, looking for signs of evolution without forcing interpretation. This patience feels essential. The universe unfolds on timescales that dwarf human attention. Expecting quick answers would be unreasonable. Dark energy teaches restraint simply by existing at a pace too slow to rush. You breathe and notice how your own inner states behave. Feelings do not always have causes you can name. They rise, linger, fade. They influence behavior without intention. They are real without being tangible. Dark energy, seen this way, does not need purpose. It does not need to know what it is doing. It simply behaves according to conditions, responding to the universe as it is. This removes any sense of drama. There is no cosmic plan being revised. No decision being made. Just natural behavior unfolding under changing circumstances. You find comfort in this simplicity. The universe does not worry about its future. It does not cling to constancy or fear change. It allows tendencies to express themselves when conditions allow. As space continues to expand, dark energy continues to participate, whether steadily or with subtle evolution. Either way, it remains gentle. It does not tear galaxies apart. It does not disrupt local harmony. It shapes destiny quietly, over unimaginable spans of time. You sense that understanding dark energy may require a shift in mindset rather than a breakthrough discovery. It may demand patience, humility, and comfort with incomplete stories. It may require listening rather than forcing explanation. This chapter feels like an invitation to soften expectations. Not everything needs to be pinned down to be meaningful. Some truths are better approached slowly, indirectly, through pattern and patience. As the night deepens, you allow the idea of dark energy as a mood to settle. A tendency rather than a thing. A quiet leaning of space toward expansion. Something that can change without intention, influence without force. The universe feels calmer this way. Less like a puzzle to solve, more like a process to witness. This realization feels important. The cosmos is not fragile. Small differences in dark energy's behavior do not shatter everything. They adjust timing, spacing, emphasis. The universe remains resilient across a wide range of possibilities. You reflect on how often endings are imagined as sudden or final. In the universe, endings blur into continuations. A future where stars fade is not an abrupt loss, but a gradual transformation. A future where space grows vast is not emptiness, but spaciousness. Dark energy, in all these visions, remains impersonal. It does not choose. It does not aim. It simply behaves according to its nature, whatever that may be. The outcomes arise from that behavior naturally, without intention. Scientists explore these futures carefully, using models, observations, and quiet imagination grounded in data. They do not predict with certainty. They outline possibilities, each consistent with what is currently known. The universe does not offer a schedule. It offers patterns. You sense how rare it is to live at a time when these futures can even be imagined. For most of cosmic history, dark energy's influence was too subtle to notice. Only now does it shape expansion strongly enough to guide speculation about destiny. Awareness arrives late, but not too late. This perspective softens the weight of the future. Nothing demands resolution. The universe does not rush toward an ending. It unfolds continuously, allowing countless moments of existence within whatever long-term trend emerges. You breathe and notice how this mirrors personal futures. Outcomes are shaped by tendencies rather than decisions alone. Small influences accumulate. Pace matters as much as direction. Change arrives slowly enough to be lived within. As you rest inside these cosmic possibilities, you feel no need to choose one. They coexist comfortably in thought, each valid within current understanding. Dark energy does not force a single narrative. It leaves room. The universe feels generous in this way. It does not collapse into certainty. It remains open, flexible, evolving. Even its ultimate fate is not yet fixed in human knowledge. You find comfort in that openness. The future is not a verdict. It is a horizon, shaped gently by conditions unfolding far beyond urgency or control. As the chapter draws toward rest, you allow these futures to drift without conclusion. Dark energy continues its quiet work, shaping expansion moment by moment. Somewhere among these possibilities, one path is already forming, leaning gently into reality, while remaining patient enough to wait. You begin this chapter by slowing down, because measurement in the universe is never rushed. To measure something vast and subtle requires stillness, not force. Dark energy does not announce itself. It leaves no tracks to follow, no particles to catch. It must be approached indirectly, through patience and pattern, through listening rather than grabbing. You imagine scientists not as hunters, but as listeners. They build instruments that wait quietly, gathering faint signals over long periods of time. Telescopes do not chase dark energy. They watch how galaxies move, how light stretches, how structure grows and relaxes across space. From these gentle observations, understanding begins to form. Measurement, here, is not about precision alone. It is about comparison. How far away is this galaxy compared to that one? How fast is expansion changing now compared to earlier times? How does light arriving today differ from light that began its journey billions of years ago? You sense how careful this process must be. Dark energy reveals itself only through cumulative effect. One observation means little. Hundreds begin to whisper. Thousands start to suggest a pattern. Data gathers slowly, like snow settling on a dark field, each flake insignificant alone, meaningful together. Satellites orbit quietly above the Earth, shielded from atmosphere and noise. They measure subtle distortions in distant light, tiny shifts that reveal how space bends and stretches. From these distortions, scientists learn how matter is distributed across the universe, and how the distribution changes with time. You imagine these satellites as patient companions, circling endlessly, recording without judgment. They do not know what they are looking for. They simply collect what arrives, trusting that meaning will emerge later. On the ground, telescopes turn toward the night sky, revisiting the same regions again and again. They map galaxies by the millions, charting positions, distances, and motions. This repetition is not redundancy. It is refinement. Each pass sharpens clarity slightly, reducing uncertainty by small, careful amounts. You feel how different this is from everyday measurement. There is no single answer waiting to be revealed. There is only narrowing possibility. Understanding advances not by certainty, but by exclusion. What dark energy is not becomes clearer long before what it is. Scientists test ideas gently. They compare observations against models, not to force agreement, but to see where differences remain. If dark energy behaves like a constant, the data should align one way. If it changes over time, the alignment shifts subtly. These differences are small, almost delicate. Detecting them requires extraordinary care. You notice how humility is built into this process. Every measurement carries uncertainty. Error bars surround each value, reminding researchers of limits. Precision is celebrated not because it proves dominance, but because it reveals honesty. Dark energy challenges measurement precisely because it is smooth. It does not cluster into convenient regions. It does not spike or flare. It spreads evenly, hiding in uniformity. Detecting uniform influence requires comparing vast distances and long times, noticing deviations so slight they would be invisible without context. You imagine standing in a perfectly calm room, trying to detect motion. Only by watching shadows shift, or dust drift, could you infer movement at all. Dark energy is like that motion, detectable only through secondary effects. Some measurements focus on how structures grow. Gravity pulls matter together, forming galaxies in clusters. Dark energy resists the growth on large scales, slowing it subtly over time. By studying how quickly structure forms and evolves, scientists infer how strong dark energy's influence must be. Other measurements focus on geometry. They examine how light travels through space, how distances relate to angles, how the universe's shape responds to expansion. These geometric clues are quiet but reliable, offering insight without drama. You feel how many perspectives must be combined. No single experiment is enough. Understanding dark energy requires a chorus of methods, each listening to a different aspect of cosmic behavior. Together, they build confidence gradually. This slowness is not inefficiency. It is respect for scale. The universe unfolds over billions of years. Measuring its deepest tendencies cannot be hurried. Each generation contributes a little more clarity, passing refined questions forward rather than final answers. You notice how this approach contrasts with urgency-driven thinking. There is no pressure to conclude. Progress is measured in improved constraints, reduced uncertainty, deeper questions. Science becomes less about resolution and more about refinement. As you breathe, you realize how comforting this is. There is permission here to not know fully, to live within approximation, to allow understanding to remain incomplete without anxiety. Dark energy invites this mindset. It resists simple capture. It rewards patience. It teaches that influence can be real without being graspable, that truth can be approached asymptotically, never fully reached, yet increasingly well understood. You imagine future instruments, more sensitive, more precise, listening even more carefully. They will not shout discoveries. They will whisper refinements. They may confirm constancy more strongly or reveal subtle change. Either outcome will arrive quietly. Measurement, in this context, feels like meditation. Attention sustained over time. Distractions minimized. Judgment suspended. Data observed without forcing interpretation too quickly. Meaning allowed to emerge naturally. You find this parallel soothing. Understanding the universe does not require conquest. It requires care. As the chapter draws toward rest, you picture data streams flowing gently into archives, charts slowly sharpening, uncertainty shrinking almost imperceptibly. Dark energy remains unseen, but its outline grows clearer with each careful observation. The universe does not resist being known. It simply asks to be approached at its own pace. You begin this chapter by settling back into the present, letting the journey through billions of years dissolve softly behind you. Time feels more immediate now, measured in your own breath rather than in the sweep of galaxies. Still, you carry the awareness of all that came before, the gentle stretching of space, the quiet acceleration, the patient measurements, the ancient light, the possibilities that have unfolded and will continue to unfold. You notice your body first. Each breath rises and falls in its own steady rhythm, a pulse as reliable as any constant in the cosmos. Yet within it, there is flexibility, subtle variation. You are a small reflection of the universe's same pattern, stability existing alongside change, movement resting inside stillness. Dark energy continues its quiet work outside your awareness. It does not hurry. It does not pause. It is indifferent to observation, unconcerned with human understanding. Yet it shapes everything, and in doing so, it mirrors something internal, the influence of unseen tendencies, gently nudging the flow of existence without fanfare. You imagine space expanding around you like a slowly inflating balloon. Galaxies drift apart with polite, unhurried patience, leaving room for possibility to stretch into every corner. The expansion is ongoing, persistent, and yet calm. Nothing threatens the present moment. Expansion is simply a fact of being, and its presence is no more dramatic than your own steady heartbeat. You notice how your thoughts float across this canvas of expansion. Each idea moves gently, stretching out before returning, echoing across memory. Just as the universe stretches, so does understanding. Questions do not demand immediate answers, they extend patiently, allowed to remain unresolved. Dark energy is like this, a question embedded in the cosmos that cannot be fully grasped, yet is undeniably real. You recall the journey you have taken, through fading light, through ancient echoes, through equations and possibilities, through the patient act of measurement. Each chapter has been a soft lesson in noticing influence without forcing control. Each has been a meditation on the subtle, persistent presence of something unseen yet real. Dark energy has become not a puzzle to solve, but a companion in reflection, a presence that asks you to witness more than to act. You feel a strange comfort in the unresolved nature of this companion. There is no expectation that you must understand it fully. There is no urgency. In fact, the more patient you become, the more intimate the understanding grows. You perceive patterns, tendencies, relationships, the poetry of influence, without needing to reduce it to a single, tidy answer. You let your imagination drift to the edges of the universe. Beyond what can be observed, beyond the reach of measurement, expansion continues. Perhaps there are regions where light has not yet reached, galaxies forming in solitude, structures that will remain unseen for billions of years. Dark energy is present there too, quietly stretching space, shaping outcomes without interference. The thought is humbling, grounding, and oddly comforting. As you breathe, you consider how questions, like dark energy, can expand indefinitely. They do not shrink with comprehension. They do not collapse under the weight of observation. They extend, slowly, silently, creating space in the mind to grow alongside them. In this way, curiosity becomes a gentle companion, as unhurried as the universe itself. The act of noticing becomes meditation. Observing without trying to capture, witnessing without needing control. The universe offers this lesson generously. Dark energy's influence is everywhere and nowhere. Its effects are profound, yet gentle. It is a reminder that some forces can shape reality without dramatic display, guiding progression through persistence rather than violence. You imagine a horizon in which you can float, held within the cosmos itself. Expansion surrounds you like soft fabric. Space is elastic, responsive, patient. Within it, you rest. All that has happened, acceleration, measurement, ancient echoes, shifting tendencies, folds into this quiet moment. The story of dark energy becomes less about explanation and more about presence. You sense that, like dark energy, some truths are experienced more than they are understood. Their rhythm is subtle. Their effect accumulates. Their importance emerges over time. You are part of this rhythm, carried along not by force but by gentle influence, moving through space and time as it unfolds. Sleep approaches gradually, like the slow stretching of space itself. You do not need to chase it, nor resist it. Each breath, each heartbeat, each quiet thought aligns with the universe's larger pattern of expansion. Questions drift softly through your mind, unforced, lingering without urgency. Dark energy remains unresolved, and that unresolved nature is not frustration, it is comfort. You allow yourself to rest in curiosity. There is no expectation to finish understanding tonight, nor tomorrow, nor in your lifetime. Some aspects of the cosmos are meant to be accompanied rather than mastered, noticed rather than solved. The universe continues, expanding gently, persistently, quietly, and you are moving within it, aligned with its patient pace. As awareness fades, you reflect on continuity. The universe is a vast story of influence, pattern, and change. Dark energy is a subtle character in this story, unobserved directly yet shaping outcomes across immeasurable distances and time spans. It has been part of the journey you have taken, a reminder that presence can be profound without being tangible, that influence can exist without spectacle. You sense the interconnectedness of everything you have witnessed. From the faint light of distant stars to the careful patient measurements, from the possibility of changing tendencies to the multiplicity of futures, the cosmos is alive with gentle movement. Patterns persist, questions expand, and the unknown continues to stretch beyond comprehension. You rest inside this expansive space. You notice the rhythm of your own mind. Thoughts drift slowly, like galaxies receding into distance. Understanding need not arrive all at once. Insight comes in fragments, in echoes, in waves, softly and gently. The universe teaches patience by example, demonstrating that clarity grows with time and attention, not through force. And so, as your body relaxes and your mind settles, you drift alongside the expansion of the universe. Dark energy remains a quiet companion, a question that expands as you do. You do not need an answer. The act of noticing, of resting within mystery, is itself a kind of understanding. Sleep becomes the natural continuation of this process, a gentle merging with the quiet expansion around you.